It is the 91st minute at NT Stadium in Dallas, Texas. 80,000 people on their feet. Portugal versus Spain. And then Ferran Torres slips a pass into the box. 1-0. The whistle blows moments later. Portugal are out. Cristiano Ronaldo, 41 years old, stands in the middle of that pitch. 6 World Cups. Every club trophy the game has to offer. Every individual record that exists in football. And the one thing that was missing from all of it is still missing. He walks slowly around the perimeter of the pitch, tears running down his face, applauding the Portuguese fans who stayed to the end. They applaud back. Everyone in that stadium understands what they are watching, the last chapter of the greatest career in the history of the sport. And it is ending without the ending he deserved. But here is the question that every Portuguese person went to sleep asking that night. What if Portugal had won that match? What would have happened next? Not just in football, but in Portugal, in the economy, in the streets, in the lives of the people watching. That is what we are exploring today. And I promise you, by the time we reach the last point on this list, you will understand why a World Cup win would have meant something far bigger than a trophy. Picture it. The final whistle blows, and Portugal have won. It is late at night in Lisbon, but nobody is sleeping. Within minutes of the final whistle, people are spilling out of every bar, every restaurant, every apartment building onto the streets. Praça do Comércio, the great square by the river, fills before the post-match interviews are even finished. Portuguese communities in Paris, in London, in Newark, New Jersey, and Toronto, all of them doing the same thing at the same time. 10 million people at home, and tens of millions more around the world, all in the same moment. The streets fill, the cars honk, strangers embrace. A country that has been waiting its entire football history for this moment finally has it. These are images from Lisbon when Portugal won Euro 2016. A World Cup would not look like that. A World Cup would look like nothing Portugal has ever seen. Now the money, and this is where the numbers start to become extraordinary. FIFA pays $50 million directly to the winning nation's football federation. That alone is the largest single payment in Portuguese football history. But that is just the beginning. A study by IPAM, the Portuguese Institute of Marketing Administration, projected that Portugal winning the 2026 World Cup would generate between 378 million and 945 million euros in total economic impact, even without hosting a single game. For a country with a GDP of around $300 billion, nearly 1 billion euros from a single football result is not a rounding error. That is a measurable shift in the national economy, and the jerseys alone would have been remarkable. When Argentina won in 2022, jersey resale prices jumped between 600 and 1,900% in the days after the final. When France won in 2018, 300,000 two-star jerseys had already been pre-ordered before anyone had even processed what happened. A Portugal jersey after a World Cup win would not just be supporter gear, it would be a collector's item, proof that you were alive the night it happened. 10 million Portuguese people at home, tens of millions more in the diaspora across 4 continents, all reaching for the same shirt at the same moment. The demand would have been unlike anything Portuguese football had ever generated. Then comes the part that transforms the players. Portugal already has one of the most talented squads in world football. Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, Bernardo Silva, Rafael Leao, Ruben Dias. These are names the football world knows. But a World Cup win does something to a squad that no transfer fee can replicate. It turns every player who lifted that trophy into a global name overnight. James Rodriguez did not even win the 2014 World Cup. He just had a good tournament, and Real Madrid paid 80 million euros for him weeks after it ended. Now imagine what the clubs chasing the players who actually won would have been willing to pay. The contracts those players could have signed. The leverage the Portuguese Federation would have had in every conversation for the next 4 years. The financial ripple across Portuguese football would have been felt for a decade. But all of that, the money, the jerseys, the transfer fees, is not the most important thing, not even close. When Germany won the World Cup in 2014, the German Football Association gained over 37,000 new members in the following year. More than 23,000 of them were children under 6 years old. 6 years old, kids who could barely kick a ball properly yet, signing up because they had seen something on a screen that made them believe it was possible. A World Cup win does not just celebrate the generation that achieved it, it creates the generation that follows. Portugal has hundreds of thousands of active football players already. A World Cup title would not have started a football culture, it would have detonated one. Every child who watched Ronaldo walking around that pitch in Dallas in tears would have grown up with a different question. Not whether Portugal can win the World Cup, but when they win it again. That shift in belief, from if to when, is worth more than any trophy or any transfer fee. That is what changes the trajectory of a nation's sport for a generation. And now, the thing I said at the beginning that nobody is talking about, the thing that matters most of all. The world does not know this, not really, not the way it should, because Portugal does not have the platform to tell it. A country of 10 million people tucked into the western corner of Europe does not command global attention the way larger nations do. The story of how Portugal rebuilt its economy is one of the most quietly impressive stories in European economic history, and almost nobody outside Portugal is paying attention to it. A World Cup win would have fixed that. For 6 months after the final, every interview about Portugal, every news segment, every travel feature, every economic story would be filed under one description: the country that just won the world's biggest sporting event. Tourism would have surged beyond any projection. Foreign investment conversations would have started differently. The country's name would have carried weight in rooms where it previously arrived quietly and left the same way. That is what a World Cup win gives a small nation that 100 press releases and 1,000 statistics cannot. Attention. Real, sustained, global attention. The kind that changes how the world sees a place, not just for a week, for years. Instead, a 91st minute goal by a substitute ends it all. Ronaldo cries. Portugal go home. The coach resigns 2 days later. But here's what I need you to hold on to. Portugal has a squad that will be competitive for years. Vitinha is 25. Rafael Leao is 25. Pedro Neto is 24. The generation that follows Ronaldo is already here and already exceptional. The next World Cup is 4 years away, and Portugal, without the weight of one man's final chance pressing down on every single result, without the retirement of a legend shadowing every tactical decision, might play differently, lighter, freer, without the question of whether this is his last opportunity hanging over the entire campaign. The what if hurts right now. That is exactly how it is supposed to feel. The best what ifs always do. But the story is not finished. Ronaldo's chapter closed in Dallas on a Sunday evening in July 2026. Portugal's chapter is still being written by players who are 24 and 25 and who watched their captain cry and decided privately that they are going to make sure that never happens to them. That feeling right there is how the next chapters start.